So in the last video, I mentioned how it's kind of annoying when we just want a color to have to access it like this. And that's just the nature of the theme because we want to be able to adjust for dark mode and prefers high contrast. So there's a few different ways we could go about solving this. The first way, which I don't really like, is just stripping out these arguments, because right now our theme is just using named colors, and these are going to adjust to the user's preferences automatically. And even when we're loading these colors, we're not even checking those arguments. Let's see, where did we load them? In the app theme. Yeah, and here we're just loading the color without even using these arguments, and that's because we're using the named colors. But the whole point of having these arguments is just to give you the flexibility that if for whatever reason you need to do it in code or load them some other way, you have that ability. But if you really want and you're only going to use named colors, you could totally strip out those arguments completely. I don't recommend it just because I like the flexibility. So the other way I thought of fixing this would be to use the environment. So SwiftUI kind of makes you think about things differently, I guess, because it's struct based. The nature of interacting with views is just way different than UIKit. So with a lot of Apple's SwiftUI views, you don't really have much in the initializers. I can't think of anything where you send in a color to an Apple SwiftUI view. It's usually set by another function. For example, the font, you set that with a function, you don't send it in the initializer. And that the way that this was working is because it's taking advantage of the environment. So we could do the same thing with our custom text field. So instead of sending it in as an argument to the initializer, we'll create a function that'll do it. So the way that we could do this is going to take a few different pieces. It's going to take the environment value and a view modifier and then some extensions on view that'll make it easier to call. So to start, we'll create the environment. So I'm just going to take what we used in the theme in the custom text field and just rename it for placeholder color. So instead of theme key, we're going to call it placeholder color key. And the type is going to be color, and by default, I'm just going to do a dark gray. And then the name of the environment value is going to be placeholder color, type color, and then we'll use the key instead of the theme key. So that should be it for the environment. Then the next step would be to actually use the environment. So instead of sending in to the initializer, we're going to get it from the environment key. So it's going to look like that. So I guess to start, I'll just start using the environment, and it's going to break a bunch of things, but we'll fix it. So now this initializer breaks, so now we'll send it in with the environment. And we're going to add an extension on a view so that we don't have to call environment directly. It'll just be .placeholder color. That'll be the last step. So now the build should break because the sign-in view is still using this initializer. So we're going to add it. Actually, I'll just delete this for now. I'll comment it out. And then everything should still build. Okay, so now let's see if it's using the environment correctly, which it is. So then the next step is going to be creating I guess I'll start with the extension first. So we're going to extend view to have this placeholder color function. And I'll take a color as a parameter. And all this is going to do is set that environment value. So now instead of having to do the environment directly, we just call placeholder color with the color. And that works. So right now we still have the same problem as before, where if I do dot placeholder color, it still needs a color, which would be through this theme. So what we'll do is create a view modifier that'll do it for us. So I'm going to create another function for placeholder color. Instead of taking a color, I'm going to take in a color style from our theme. I need to import our theme at the top to get access to it. So now we're going to get the style and we have to generate the color. So I'll just get a fatal error here. So we can't grab the environment in the extension. So if we create a view modifier, we'll be able to grab those environment values. So I'll just create a private view modifier. We'll just call it placeholder color modifier. And this is going to take in these environment values in here. So I'll just steal them real quick. Drop them in here. And then we need the style argument passed in as well. So I'll just make that a let. And then what we could do is use our extension on view and pass the color. So it'll just be self.placeholder color. Which I think because I'm above the function, it's not showing up right now. Let's just do red and see if that works. Oh, because I'm doing self. It needs to be on content. Oops. Okay, so instead of doing red, we need to generate this color. So now that we have all these environment values, we could create our color. It's going to be style, and then isDark mode is color scheme is dark, and then same for color contrast is going to be increased. Just clean this up. So it's still verbose, but now it's going to be hidden away as more of an implementation detail. And then our usage of it will be a lot easier. So now in here, I'm going to return a modified view. And pass in the style. Cool. So now instead of saying the color directly, I could send in the style. So we could do action primary, which should be orange. Let's see if it worked. Which is kind of hard to see, but that is indeed orange. I'll do text primary just to make it a little bit easier to see. There you go. So that works. Take this out. We don't care about the environment right now. And that is it for our custom text field environment stuff. So now to actually use it, we could send in our style now. Instead of that long list of arguments, we just pass in the style. So it looks like we were doing text placeholder as a style. We can delete this now. I don't think we need these two environment values anymore. So if we build, good to go. And that is it. So we could clean up whenever we're using our own custom views. it's helpful to think about using environment values instead of directly sending to the initializer where it makes sense. So for the context of a custom text field, it is helpful to add the placeholder color to the environment. And one of the benefits of this is when you have multiple views, like in a VStack. So since fonts are set by the environment, we're able to set multiple elements at once. So instead of having to do setting the font directly on both text fields, what we could do is set it on the VStack, and then that applies to everything inside. And since it's the environment, it trickles down to all the views inside of it. So even though we're not setting the font directly on these text fields, they're pulling it from the environment, which the VStack is defining. So we could do the same thing here. Instead of setting the placeholder in our create function, we could set it on the VStack itself, and it'll set for both of those text fields. So the environment can be really powerful to help with common colors and fonts and things like that. Whenever it's very helpful with fields and a lot of text that needs to be styled the same, because you don't want to have to put the styling on each individual element. If you could apply it to everything within a stack, that's really handy to do. And then if you want to change things, like if we want to change this to text primary, we're only changing it in one place. We don't have to make sure each individual element changes. So that's it for this video. The environment could be super helpful for making interacting with your views cleaner. So I just wanted to do a short video building off that problem from yesterday. In the next video, I'm gonna show how to use this theme with UIKit, which is a whole different process than SwiftUI. So look out for that one.